One Dental Clinic, sponsors of Women Today, offer convenient appointment times in the heart of Douglas, so you can fit your dental care into your working day.
Faster, my good afternoon. It's just gone 6 minutes past 2. I'm Christy DeHaven, and today we're back on the Conister Rock, where we spend an hour sharing music and memories with some of our best loved island personalities. And I'm joined on the rock today by our second husband and wife team, two people who've played a major part in contributing to the creative heart of the island by building one of the most successful events in the cultural calendar. Manx Lit Fest is almost upon us again, but somehow John and Emma Quirk have managed to find the time to come and share their own story with us this afternoon. Welcome to the studio.
Hello, Christy.
It's
Hi.
lovely to have you both with us. I should say before we go any further, and thanks to Alex for pointing this one out, yesterday was, of course, Roald Dahl Day.
Indeed.
And we did have a little sort of celebration of him on Women Today. You have a children's author coming this year who's won a Roald Dahl Prize.
Philip Ardagh, yes, we do.
How
Indeed.
exciting!
Yeah.
And it's for being funny.
We are reliably informed that Philip is very, very funny. Yeah, and very, very tall as well.
Tall and funny. Oh, well, you can see he's perfect
Yeah.
for Roald Dahl then. You know,
Yeah.
that all
and
fits.
he has a huge beard as well, which
Again,
I think just adds to it.
imagery, yeah,
Yeah.
all good. Well, we'll come more to the people who you've got coming over for Litfest a little bit later on. How is it going, though? Like I said, you have taken time out. This must be pretty much your craziest time of year.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I think the last couple of weeks, getting the programme finished and getting it out to the printers is at least it's my most manic time. Now that's gone and the programmes are out and about, it eases off a little bit, but it's still full on, as you know. It's all go.
And Emma, the amount of events you've got this year, it seems to be growing exponentially year on year. I mean, I looked at that list when you first published that programme and thought, how on earth do they get all this together?
Sheer luck, I think, is the answer. There are a lot of public events on, and as well as the public events, we've got sort of 28 schools visits as well. So there's a lot going on, but our authors are very willing and don't seem to say no to any of our suggestions.
We do work them quite hard when they come across,
And the volunteers as well, who, work
Yeah.
their socks off for you, don't they? How many people have you got on your tribe of volunteers now?
Volunteer 20 odd.
Yeah, there's a lot of volunteers.
Yeah, I think-
more and more every year, which is good.
Yeah, I think some will do certain years and then maybe if they're away the following year, but they'll come back the year after that. So it sort of fluctuates a bit, but I think it's around about sort of 20.
Do you have to be a book lover to be a volunteer at Litfest?
No,
No, I think it helps, but you don't have to be.
not at all. You can. Our volunteers do get some free tickets to some of the events as well. So some of our volunteers are maybe only holiday readers. We have a lot of them, and that's perfectly fine. So you don't have to be an avid reader, but you have to like stories, and it doesn't matter if they're told by film or audiobooks or, just sitting down the pub with your friends. As long as you like stories, that's fine.
Because actually that's always been a key element of Litfest is storytelling, hasn't it? And it's something that you sort of introduce in interesting ways each year. Because you have the storytelling aspect, don't you?
Yeah, we had Ben Haggerty, who's coming across this year. He came across to the first two festivals and was a big hit. And I think from then on, we've sort of realised the power of storytelling, not just books and not just poetry, but story. And we're really glad to have him back this year. He's doing Frankenstein for us. I can't wait. It's.
I'm looking forward to having Ben back.
Yeah. Oh, go on. You tell the story.
So Ben was really hungry last time he was over, and there was nowhere open when he finished. So I just took him back to our house. We had a lovely candlelit dinner, and then had to drive him back to his hotel after dinner. And John came home, and there were candles lit, 2 candles, 2 sort of glasses of wine. Obviously mine was water, but it was still in a wine glass, and John didn't have a clue where I'd gone with Ben. So I'm looking forward to having Ben back.
Can I just add that Ben is sort of 6'3", strapping man,
Rather lovely.
Yeah, quite intimidating. And yeah.
Sounds like you have to be tall to be a guest at Litfest.
Taller than John.
Well, that's not hard, is it? Let's face it.
Do you know, what is fantastic about you two is that despite the fact that you were organising one of the biggest events in the calendar over here, you managed to keep smiles on your faces the entire way through. How do you two get on at this time? Because being a husband and wife team, it must pose certain challenges.
Well, we do have a bet going as to how many arguments we'll have every year during the festival, but we do make sure that the Monday after the festival we don't work. We do like a mop-up day, but we go out for breakfast, normally to Peel Kiosk for a bacon bap with the dog. And go, okay, we do still kind of like each other, right? And then we're fine. So we haven't had our first Litfest fight yet.
They're not really arguments anyway, are they? They're minor disagreements.
Yeah, normally about who's forgotten the children.
Usually me. Yeah.
Now, and they are old enough now really to sort of play a bit of a part in what goes on. How involved do they get? Really involved.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not child labour. They're not working that way, but they're proud of the festival. They like to be involved. Gypsy May will be bringing some of her friends to some of the events as her guests. We are paying for their tickets, but they are coming as guests. Ryan will be at our family day, probably as Mr. Wolf, playing a big game of What's the Time, Mr. Wolf. So they do get involved. And we have to have their consent to do the festival because it does take so much time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it impacts quite a lot on our family time for particularly that week, but also for the 2 or 3 weeks running up to it, which coincides with the start of the school term, which is never easy,
Yeah, I can imagine. And the family element and the educational element, as you mentioned before as well, has always been key, hasn't it? Is there a specific reason behind that?
Yeah, families should enjoy stories. And again, it doesn't matter if you can't read to your children at bedtime, that's fine, we're all busy, we don't always have time. But you should always enjoy a story with your children. And whether that is jokes around the dinner table or in the car, and some of John's jokes are the longest ever told, or coming out to our family day and having a stomp through muddy puddles and maybe learning in a fun way about how stories and how you can play games with stories. It means a lot. It's really important to me anyway.
Yeah.
Seeing families come and enjoy stories in a different way.
And do you think that kids still, when you go into schools, because it's not just authors you bring poets in as well, don't you? Do you think kids still appreciate books enough?
I think so, yeah. I've been around a few of the school days, and we get to sort of try and visit as many of the school visits as possible. I don't get to as many as I want to, but when I do, I've been into both primary schools and secondary schools, and I've seen the way the authors interact with the children, and sometimes it's the surprise on the kids' faces. We took a poet, Mark Grist, who was fabulous. He came across for 2014 festival, and I took him down to Castle Rushen High School, and it was a huge big hall. There was been sort of 3 or 4 rows of kids, teenagers, probably sort of anywhere 15 up to 16, 17. And a lot of them were young lads. And I sort of looked at the audience and I thought, this could be a hard gig for you, Mark. And he came out and he was hilarious. And he had the meeting out of the palm of his hand within 2 or 3 minutes. And they loved it. We've got a photograph that's on a cover picture on Twitter. And it's of him laughing. And all the kids are just in hysterics at him. And they're just in awe of him. And that made me realise that's exactly why we do Litfest, to try and inspire younger people to read more, to write more, and to get involved with story.
We did have someone contact us as well after the Mark Grist visits, and their child had gone to World Book Day or World Heroes Day dressed as Mark Grist, which is pretty cool. I mean, that kind of impact is good.
And I take it you've fed this back to Mark himself.
Yeah.
Oh, he must have been so pleased. He is, I have to say, one of the coolest poets I think I've ever met. He is brilliant, Mark Grist, and a teacher himself as well, isn't he? So, lovely fella. You mentioned before stories obviously all linked into music and film as well, and this leads us quite nicely into our first choice of music, John, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. I was as a kid, loved the spaghetti westerns, Clint Eastwood and Sergio Leone, and the music to it, Ennio Morricone. And my favourite is Ecstasy of Gold from The Good, the Bad and the Ugly. Emma calls it my washing up music, which it is. But it's also probably my favourite bit of film music I've ever heard.
I don't think anyone has really surpassed Ennio Morricone for creating an emotional response to a piece of film. So here it is, Ecstasy of Gold, the first choice of music from John and Emma Quirk today. feel like I'm actually out on the plains somewhere, horses around, cowboys everywhere. It's just so evocative. Ecstasy of Gold from The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, and that is the first choice of music from John Quirk. We have both John and Emma with us this afternoon. Apologies to the John Quirk I tagged on Facebook. That was not you, apparently, John. But maybe he'll be listening now.
He might be, yeah.
Yeah, I have untagged him. Talking about being film fans, Emma, I have to ask you. Giant creatures in movies. You've got a bit of a thing for them. Come on, fess up.
Yeah, and it is probably not so much a guilty pleasure anymore because I'm not embarrassed of it. I like big monster movies and I like weather systems and I really, really, really love Sharknado.
Oh my word.
I know they're cheesy.
I haven't seen Sharknado. Is it sharks and tornadoes?
It is, and it actually happened in Australia. There was a brief tornado and it did pick up one shark and put it on a beach. So,
no,
it's
didn't.
Practically a documentary.
No, it didn't. No, really?
Yeah, it was in the newspapers and everything. So
it was only a little
true.
Considering I've got you two in front of me and you are probably known for spinning tales, I'm going to take that with a massive pinch of salt.
I think what Emma hasn't quite said there is that there isn't just one Sharknado film, there are 5 of them.
No.
Yes.
What, is it basically just
successful.
5 different sharks being dropped by 5 different tornadoes?
The story just continues and gets more and more ridiculous. I mean, no one else in the house watches them when I watch them because they're all too embarrassed. But look,
I go do the washing up, yeah.
Life is too serious to watch serious films all the time, and Sharknado is a lot of fun.
It's your escapism, isn't
really
it, Emma?
Yeah.
Are you both the same when it comes to books? Do you like sort of books that take you out of reality, or what sort of things do you two read?
Bit of both, really. I like a bit of stark reality, but I also like fantasy and sci-fi and sort of books that take you completely away from this world. Mm-hmm. I really don't mind.
I read anything and everything, and at the moment, my friends have got me reading Riders by Julie Cooper.
No.
So I started this on the bus this morning. And
were you flush-faced by the end of the bus journey?
I don't know how he's passed me by, to be honest. Yeah, so anything and everything.
Just make sure you keep them away from the kids, okay?
Yeah.
That's probably a good idea. We'll be chatting more with John and Emma and finding out more music choices from them after the break. If you've got any questions for them, or you want to perhaps share some memories of favourite events at LitFest, we'd love to hear from you. 166 or you can email studio@manxradio.com.
Station, Manx Radio.
One Dental Clinic, sponsors of Women Today, offer convenient appointment times in the heart of Douglas, so you can fit your dental care into your working day.
You are listening to Women Today, but we're on the Conister Rock as per usual on a Friday afternoon, just gone 24 minutes past 2, and delighted to be joined by John and Emma Quirk, the people who have created LitFest and are very much in the thick of it now because it's only 2 weeks away, isn't it, John?
It's less than 2 weeks away.
Yeah, because it's Friday already, of course.
Yeah, starts on Tuesday, September 25th. So
yeah, so you seem to again add more and more days each year as well.
We started in 4 days and we've expanded up to 6. And I don't think we're going to go any wider than that. I think.
No.
I think 6 days is enough.
I think you've taken
Although
on plenty.
we have said that before.
Now, coming back then to how this all began from the point of view of how you two met, because it was quite far away from here, wasn't it? At the start, I did say, I wanted to say that your Manx connection began in Dubai.
That's good.
Do you like what I did
that.
there? Do you want to explain, John?
Yeah, I wrote a book called The Manx Connection back in, it was published in 2007. I started doing the planning and the research back in 2004, and that involved trips to America. Spent 3 weeks in America, then I did a week in Dubai and South Africa, and then 3 weeks in Australia and New Zealand. And it was to visit all the Manx societies around the world to find out about why they still consider themselves Manx. Even people who are, sort of 4th, 5th generation American and Australian have these Manx societies, and they celebrate the Isle of Man and what it's like to be Manx. And so it was part history of the Manx that emigrated and part sort of travel book as well. And I ended up in Dubai with Jill Costain and staying with her, who she was president of the Manx Society in Dubai at the time. And on the Sunday that I got there, Jill had something on, so she said, "I can't really look after you today. I can't show you around, but I've got a friend who can." So in walked Emma.
And what were you doing in Dubai, Emma?
I was out there setting up a recruitment agency. I got recruited to go out and set up an agency. So myself and Ryan, who was just over 1 at the time.
He was just under 2 when we
so
met.
it was just over 1 when we went out, and we went out there, just the 2 of us, and Jill asked us to show John around. So I walked into Jill's house one morning. And John was sitting at the table in his boxer shorts.
Oh, hello.
Having a breakfast, obviously.
That's a way to greet someone, John.
It is, yeah.
And was it like a love story?
He was a bit mean, actually.
Here we go. You've got to have drama in a good love story.
Here we go, get this going.
So we took him out for the day to show him around, and he didn't buy my lunch. I had to buy my own lunch.
How rude.
It just...
Had he put clothes on by this point?
He had,
That's good.
He had, but I kind of thought, okay, so he's not that much of a pushover. Let's see what we can happen.
And then they wouldn't give you any of the answers to the Manx quiz, would they?
Yeah, wouldn't even my blinking of eyes and fluttering of eyelids, not a single quiz answer came our way. Ryan and I left Dubai. You went to South Africa. You came back from South Africa, and you phoned me up from Heathrow or Gatwick.
Heathrow, I think it was.
And said, I've got a flight in early. Do you know anyone anywhere in London that's good for breakfast? And I said, well, to be honest, loads of places, but I'm in Norwich with my mum. I'll phone you back, he said. Phones me back. I'm on a train to Norwich. Do you know anywhere in Norwich that's good for breakfast?
Smoothie, John.
I have my moments.
That was kind of it, really.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Coming back, though, an interesting point, the fact that you went to Dubai with such a young son, that must have been a big move for you, Emma, to do with a child of that age.
Yeah, I had the support of my family, so I always knew they would help if I needed help. But I was young and foolish, and I didn't consider any risks.
And so how then did you both come back to the Isle of Man? Did you have to convince Emma, John?
Well, we spent sort of 6 months with me coming over here, me going to London sort of every 3 or 4 weeks, and Emma came across the Isle of Man a couple of times. And after about 6 months, we sort of said, like, this is expensive. So, what are we going to do? So the choice was for me to move to London or for Emma and Ryan to move to the Isle of Man, and Emma decided she'd like to come and see what the Isle of Man was like properly,
Yeah. John had good friends and lovely family, and the island's a nice place. It kind of got under my skin, really.
It did, yeah. It happens to some people.
Well, it does, because, of course, it meant you moving back as well, because you'd, in essence, left. So it was...
No, I was living here at the time when I went across to do the research. So I was always based here. I'd lived across for a few years in my mid-20s, and then came back when I was 26. So I was kind of based here anyway, but I was kind of looking at where life might lead me. And as it happens, it led me back here, and then Emma came in when Ryan came over, and then we had a house in Hildersley Road, and yeah.
Yeah, and then we moved out of Douglas. Lovely as Douglas is.
Then we went south of the bridge.
We needed to go south.
Bravest movie ever made.
Well, the climate's far better down there.
Well said. Speaking of houses in Hildersley Road, that is my other way of crowbarring in your next piece of music, John.
You've done this before, haven't you?
Let's let him introduce this one, because you introduced the last one.
So this is Madness with Our House, because we live in a house.
Is that why, really?
And it's often madness. No, Madness from my childhood, and I love them. And I could have picked any sort of song to be on there. But Our House just seems to have a nice family feel to it. And the kids love it as well. They're often sort of belting out in the back of the car.
So they'll be dancing around to this one?
If they should be at school.
Of course. Of course, they'll be at school behaving and doing all sorts of educational things. But anyway, let's dedicate this to them. This is for Ryan and Gypsy May. This is Madness in Our House.
Gets up late for work. Mother has to iron his shirt. Then she sends the kids to school, sees them off with a small kiss. She's the one they're going to miss in lots of ways.
That is madness. Our house, as chosen rather by my studio guests, John and Emma Quirk from Litfest fame, of course. We have had an email in, which I can only assume is from your place of work, because it is from your place of work, Emma. And it is from Neil, who says, why do libraries still exist when we have Google and Emma Quirk?
Good question, Neil and Jane and Steph. Because libraries are more than just books. They are a place of community, they are a place of information, they are a place of knowledge. It's a library, and I will take them all to the Henry Bloom Noble Library one lunchtime for a little tour. But libraries are more than just books, Neil.
It's true. It is, and the Henry Bloom Noble Library is absolutely brilliant, and Jan deserves a huge shout out because what goes on down there is wonderful. And you often have events there as well, don't you? Which is sort of part of what you do at Litfest. Coming back to looking back at childhood and things then for both of you. We're talking about you moving here, and you obviously have family here as well. But Emma, you actually grew up in Surrey, didn't you? And I want to ask you about the fact you went to an all-girls school. What was it like? Was it like Mallory Towers?
No, I wish. My parents sent me to an all-girls school thinking that would be a good way to keep me on the straight and narrow.
It didn't
work.
No,
because we had a boys' school either side of our girls' school, so it really didn't work. But it did mean that I didn't necessarily wear loads of makeup to school like some of the co-ed schools do. And I have we had a very strong headmistress, a very strong female headmistress who instilled good skills in us, I think.
You both actually, because we do, one of the questions we ask our guests when we're talking about putting these shows together is whether or not they have anyone in their lives that were particularly inspiring. And you both mentioned some very strong women in your lives that had a big impact. I mean, you've just mentioned obviously in school, Emma, but also family-wise, you had some quite strong women, didn't you? Yeah.
So my mum is a fierce feminist. Very fierce feminist. In fact, she gets very upset the fact that I took John's name when we got married, and she thinks I was frowned upon for that.
You have to tell us your maiden name because it's beautiful.
My middle name, my mum's maiden name, is Flowerdew. So I am Emma Flowerdew Quirk, and our daughter is Gypsy May Flowerdew Quirk. So I have tried to acknowledge my mother in our naming, but she's a fierce feminist, always. And an environmentalist, and a lot of what I do is with her in mind. Would she be proud of that? Sometimes she is. And my stepmum, who I moved in with my dad and stepmum when I was 11, and she's just incredible. She's an amazing homemaker, cook, mother. You know, she is probably the person I phone first whenever I need advice, particularly to do with the children, and she's always there.
And John, you also mentioned several women in your life who've been sort of had a big impact on you, but I really want you to tell the story for us about your nan and a bag of spuds.
Yeah, I think I was about 9 or 10, I think, and we ran a guest house at the top of Derby Road, and this was sort of late 70s, early 80s. And my nan was a big battle axe of a woman, Irish woman, and she was in the kitchen one day, and she told me to go into the pantry and bring out the rest of the potatoes that were in the sack. So I walked into the pantry, and my little boy arms couldn't shift the sack of potatoes at all. And I went out back to her and said, Nana, I can't lift it. And she said, you can, try again. So I went back and forth trying to lift this bag of potatoes, and I couldn't. And in the end, I sort of went out, I was really in tears. I said, well, Nan, I can't do it. And she sort of said, you can, think about it. And I sort of looked around, I thought, what am I going to do? And I saw a pot, an empty pot, and something just twigged. So I picked the pot up, went in, filled the pot with potatoes, brought it out to her, and she said, nice. So I carried on doing that, and eventually all the potatoes were out of the sack and on the table ready for her to cook them. And I sort of had a big smile on my face, and she said, see, John, there's no such word as can't. And that is probably the one bit of advice that stuck with me all through my life.
Do you think you'd have achieved what you had, especially with Litfest, if you hadn't had that sort of grounding?
No, I don't think so. I think because there were times early on, particularly when we were trying to put Litfest together, and it's a mammoth undertaking, and you need so much coordination, and you need a lot of team behind you, and yeah, I think if there were times where I thought, is it really, can I really do this? Is it really sort of worth it? Is it possible to do it? And yeah, I think that kind of ethos stood me in good stead, certainly for Litfest.
Which is just wonderful. I love that story. And you can tell that you're a writer, John, the way you say that. You're also both big fans of music, I know. And in fact, you've combined this various mediums with this year's programme. I'm really looking forward to, for instance, the Zoe Gilbert night, because you've got the bookshop band coming over too. And you've got a literary-inspired songwriting workshop too, haven't you? So obviously, sort of music, it sort of fits anyway, doesn't it, with this whole thing? And there's all the link with fairy tales and everything as well. But as music fans, there's a particular song which we're going to hear now, which you've mentioned, which you only just discovered this band quite recently by the sound of things as a result of some very good friends of yours. So Emma, do you want to tell us how you first heard about the Blue Tones?
So our friends Pam and Rob, who are also part of the Litfest team, Pam's one of the Litfest directors, and Rob is our quiz master extraordinaire. He writes an incredibly difficult quiz for us. They're massive Blue Tones fans. They go around the UK following them. They go to their gigs all the time, and they brought Mark Morris over here several times. So some of our best nights have been with the Blue Tones music.
Yeah, I mean, the first time I'd properly heard them was when they did I think Mark was doing a crowdfunding thing for a new album, Mark Morris, the lead singer, and Pam and Rob, rather than going across to see them, decided to pay for him to come over to the Isle of Man, and he performed a private gig in their conservatory, and we got invited to that, and it was we listened to a lot of the music beforehand just to sort of to get find out what it was about, do our homework, yeah, and I fell in love with them. That was brilliant, and we haven't stopped since.
So this is Pam's favourite song.
Yeah. So we're going to dedicate this to Pam. This is Blue Tones and Firefly.
But it comes.
It's a beautiful tune. Huge fan of the Blue Tones, so I'm glad you managed to get Firefly on there. A choice of my studio guests. We've got John and Emma Quirk with us. We've had an email in from Alison about writing standards in schools. So this is a good one, this. Alison says, given the great job the Manx Litfest team have done in the island's primary schools, do they have any suggestions as to how the standards of writing can be raised in them? With performance data now being published annually, it's apparent that some of our schools lag behind other parts of the UK. What would you two say to that? I know it's quite a big question, that.
It is a big question. It's not just down to the schools. The schools play a big part, but writing has to come from families as well. Let's not be scared to admit that as parents sometimes we're challenged by having to help our children. I am rubbish at maths, and my children know I'm rubbish at maths, and yet we still sit around the table and have a go. And the same with storytelling. Let's not be scared as parents to sit down and try and write with our children.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to reading with kids when they're younger, and instilling them a love of the story and a love of English, and then following it through, as Emma says, at home.
We use lots of audiobooks as well with our kids, and always have done since they were toddlers. Audiobooks are great in the car, or people are really hung up on the written word. People worry about literacy levels in reading and writing. Storytelling isn't just that. Storytelling is so much more. It's about vocalising the story. It doesn't matter how you get those stories. I keep saying there's parents come to us quite a lot worried about their children not reading, particularly boys. It doesn't matter how they get the information or learn the language. Don't be scared to do it verbally. Don't be scared that if they're using an iPhone to record a story by voice, that's fine.
Good advice there from Emma Quirk and John Quirk. Well, we have another 2 music choices from them up after the break. If you want to contribute at all to the show this afternoon, you can text 166 177 or email studio@manxradio.com.
Manx Radio, the nation station. Manx Radio.
Abbey Dental, sponsors of Women Today, for all aspects of today's dental care. Highly recommended throughout the Isle of Man.
And we are on the Conister Rock into the final section of the show. It's gone so quickly with John and Emma Quirk this afternoon, husband and wife team behind Litfest, of course. And I have to ask you, things have changed somewhat for you this year, haven't they? Your parental responsibilities as such and your daily life has had something of a switch around, hasn't it?
Yes, it has, yeah. I went freelance writing back in March, and at the start of February, Emma, who previously had been the person working from home, looking after the kids, went back to work full time.
I did. I do work full time now.
And she reminds me every single day.
How have
Even
you found
weekends.
that? How has it gone? Because first of all, Emma, how has it been for you to go back to work full time?
I was really nervous at first. But I'm working for this amazing company who have been really supportive, and in an industry that I didn't even really knew existed. And I'm finding that I'm actually really enjoying the work, but don't tell John.
And John, what about you? Because you're now self-employed and also getting much more time to do your writing, obviously, as well. But big change for you, because you were with not just Alum and Advertising for a long time, but before that, the papers too, with presumably, structure to your days. And so now being self-employed, how have you adjusted?
We are going through a period of readjustment, I think. It's not easy, but it's freed me up, and I'm in a much happier place now doing that. I'm finding a bit more time to do my own writing while trying to earn money as well. Juggling everything with the kids, it hasn't been easy, but I knew it wasn't going to be easy. I knew it was difficult, and fortunately, on 3 of the days, the kids have stuff after school, so it's not a sort of pick up at 3:30 type thing. So the kids' activities are lending themselves very well to my sort of wanting to find time to write.
And the kids themselves, I have to say, I think you could class them pretty much as overachievers. Those two children do so many different things. It's brilliant. I love the fact that you described Gypsy May as a whirlwind of chaos. And of course, you had Ryan just this weekend, who had his big screen debut at the Isle of Man Film Festival in the superb Invaders song. Just excellent. And actually, Ryan leads us in quite nicely to your next piece of music. Tell us about Billy Elliot.
we went to see Billy Elliot quite early on in our relationship, did we? Yeah. And Emma persuaded me to go and see it. I don't mind musicals. I haven't got anything against musicals at all. But I love the film, and I didn't really know how they were going to do a musical of it. And I'm also not very keen on Elton John music either. So I kind of went under duress, but I loved it. Thought it was absolutely brilliant. Blew me away in the West End. And this song in particular we liked. And then Ryan must have been sort of 5 at the time, and we had it on in the car, the soundtrack. And I don't know if we turned it down for some reason or whatever, or went to a particular quiet part, and we heard Ryan singing in the back of the car. And at that point, it was our first inkling that he might like a sort of a career on the stage or singing or acting or something like that. And so it's kind of stuck with us since then.
And he has been doing very well so far, and we wish him all the best in his future endeavours too. So here is just a short extract from Billy Elliot, Electricity.
Can I just ask you, Billy, what does it feel like when you're dancing?
I can't really explain it. I haven't got the words. It's a feeling that you can't control. I suppose it's like forgetting, losing who you are, but at the same time, something makes you whole. It's like that there's music playing in your ear, and I'm listening, and then I disappear, and then I feel a change, like a fire deep inside. Something burst in me wide open, impossible to hide. And suddenly I'm flying like a bird, like electricity. Electricity sparks inside of me, and I'm free. I'm free.
Wonderful. We are going to have to pull it out fairly soon because we've still got another song choice to get in from John and Emma Quirk, and we don't want to miss the final one. Just a couple of things that I want to ask you at the end. First of you, one of you loves crochet. I'm guessing it's not John.
He likes the blankets he gets to sit under.
Oh, yeah, they're nice.
Oh, nice. So you do spend a lot of time being creative then, Emma, which is nice to know. Also, I love that you said in the information that you sent through, I mean, you said, this island is full to the brim with people who are passionate enough to volunteer to make things happen. And Litfest is just perfect proof of that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's this island is full of people that are making their island somewhere they want to live. And that's what I love so much about this island. And Litfest is just one part of that. We've got, a committee who aren't really a committee anymore. They're friends. They are
very good friends.
They are our bestest friends, and we work together to put Litfest on.
Yeah.
And they have a bit of a say, don't they, or at least contribute into sort of what you're going to do each year.
Absolutely, yeah. They drive it just as much as we do, definitely.
More so, actually, 'cause I haven't been to many meetings this year.
No, you haven't, have you?
Because I work
full-time now. Because you work full-time now, yeah.
So when you are looking at how to put the schedule together, are there sort of, have you always got people that you want to try for each year? Are there those sort of ultimate guests still that you're thinking, really want this person? And how do you convince them to come? Because you have some really big names at Litfest every year.
It's a bit of there are certain authors and poets and storytellers who sometimes we just go to them once and say, do you want to come? And they say, yeah. And we think, fantastic. There's other ones who have turned us down 2 or 3 times because their schedule is very busy. But we finally get them. Chris Riddell is an example. We asked him twice when he was Children's Laureate, and his team came back and said, really sorry, but he's just, he can't fit you in. So we went back again this year after he finished being Children's Laureate, and they agreed to him coming over, which is fantastic. So we always have a kind of hit list, and sometimes they come off, sometimes they don't, because there's a lot of festivals around the UK, around the British Isles, and further afield, and they're always in hot demand authors. So we have a little hit list each year, and we kind of refine that after each festival, because we've always read new authors over the previous few months, and then we we make our approaches and see who we get.
Well, this year is just a perfect example again of how you do manage to get a wonderful array of writers and performers and speakers and the workshops and everything as well. So you just go to manxlitfest.com to find out all about what is going on. It's on in under 2 weeks, so do check that out. I'm just going to mention that when I asked what the talents were, John said that Emma is the opposite of sat-nav and always gets us lost going out for walks, which I absolutely love. But let's come to your final song, because we're only going to manage a little bit of it, but it is Paul Weller, and it has a lovely link to your father, doesn't it, Emma?
Yeah, so this was our first dance at our wedding. We did want an Elvis number, but Dad couldn't sing Elvis very well, but he could sing Paul Weller, so my dad sang this, and my stepsister's father, Peter Hughes, played the guitar for it, and we danced to it with Suede, really.
Sweat, yeah. I'd never class anything I do as dancing.
Well, it's been an absolute joy chatting to you both this afternoon. Thank you so much for being with us. All the best for Manx Litfest. And we'll no doubt see you same time next year, but I will see you at the events very much. So John and Emma Quirk, thank you.
Thank
you for having us.
Love I'll never find. You do something wonderful. Chase it all away.
Abbey Dental, sponsors of Women Today, for all aspects of today's dental care. Highly recommended throughout the Isle of